Okay, here's a thought to start us off. What if the key to building, truly advanced ethical AI, what if it isn't hidden in some complex new code, but actually in the writings of a philosopher from way back in the 17th century? Welcome, everyone. We're doing a deep dive today into Baruch Spinoza. It turns out his philosophy is providing this surprisingly relevant framework for the next generation of AI. We're going to explore how his ideas, specifically about holism and determinism, might help us get past some of the hurdles we're seeing with AI right now. The goal really is to make systems that aren't just smarter, but also, fundamentally ethical. So our mission today is pretty straightforward. Let's unpack these fascinating links between Spinoza's metaphysics, his ideas about the nature of reality, and how people are designing AI today. We're leaning on some great work, especially excerpts from Spinoza's philosophy, Foundations for Holistic and Ethical AI by Gerardo and Giovanni, plus some other key sources. We think diving into these philosophical roots offers some, well, frankly, surprising insights for building AI that's genuinely, as the paper puts it, more than the sum of its parts, AI that's better suited for the real, messy world. So we've kind of set the stage, but how do we actually build this AI that's more than the sum of its parts? Where do we start?
Well, the journey really begins with Spinoza's ideas on holism, his metaphysics. It basically forces us to rethink the whole blueprint for AI.
Rethink the architecture itself.
Exactly. His core insight was that intelligence isn't just about individual smart components. It emerges from how all the components interact. It's all about the connections, the system as a whole.
That sounds quite different from how AI is often built now.
It is.
Right.
And it's striking how his critique of dualistic thinking, separating mind and body completely, how relevant that is to AI challenges today.
Oh, so?
Well, think about traditional AI. Often you have these isolated approaches, like symbolic systems over here doing logical reasoning, and then connectionist systems like neural nets over there doing pattern recognition.
Right, treated as totally separate
Yeah,
things.
separate worlds almost. But Spinoza's idea, his monist ontology,
Monist ontology.
basically seeing mind and body, or in this case, maybe logic and pattern recognition, not as separate things, but as like two sides of the same coin, two aspects of one underlying reality. So for AI, this translates into what Vadinsky calls dual aspectism. It's this powerful idea that symbolic and connectionist approaches shouldn't be walled off. They need to coexist, co-work.
So inference and learning can actually integrate.
Precisely. And that leads to AI that's not just smart in one way, but deeply integrated, more robust, and capable of genuinely emergent behaviors, things we didn't explicitly program in.
So it's not just about what's inside the AI's head, so to speak. If Spinoza's framework holds, does this mean truly smart AI needs to be constantly interacting with its environment, learning from context, almost like it's embedded in the world?
That's a great way to put it. This Spinoza's view really emphasizes that AI architecture has to be grounded in context, in feedback loops, in continuous interaction with its surroundings.
Why is that so crucial?
Because that's how it learns to deal with the real world's messiness, uncertainty, unexpected events. These constant interactions are vital for the AI to iteratively improve, to become robust. Prabhakaran talks about modeling AI as an ecological agent.
An ecological agent, like a creature in an ecosystem.
Kind of, yeah. Less like a static program and more like a system that learns and adapts through its ongoing dance with the world around it. That's how it becomes more than the sum of its parts, by being deeply embedded and responsive.
Okay. That makes sense for adaptability. But then we hit this other core Spinoza concept, determinism. That word often sounds, well, rigid, like the opposite of adaptive. How does determinism fit into building this dynamic, almost living system?
Right, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It seems paradoxical, but Spinoza's principle of determinism, when you apply it carefully to AI, actually brings huge benefits: predictability, reliability, and control.
Predictability. How?
Well, think about an integrated AI model, one with both symbolic and connectionist parts. Determinism, as Zadinsky points out, means we can potentially trace how information flows, why it reached a certain conclusion. It gives us explainability, coherence in its reasoning.
Can you give an example, maybe with something like a self-driving car?
Sure, determinism in that context could mean we can map out precisely how sensor data leads to a braking decision. We could define the possible states the AI can be in. This allows us to predict, with a high degree of certainty, how it will react if, say, a kid runs into the street.
So it brings reliability. You know it will do what it's supposed to do.
Exactly. Predictability, reliability, and crucially, control. It acts as intended, consistently.
And I guess that predictability is incredibly important when we start talking about ethics, right? Especially in high-stakes areas like medicine or finance.
Absolutely critical. You need to know why an AI recommended a certain treatment or denied a loan. Determinism helps ensure that decision-making is not just reliable, but also ethically sound,
How does it help with the ethics part specifically?
because it allows you to define clear rules for how knowledge is used. You
Uh,
can build ethical principles directly into the AI's architecture, making them fundamental to its operation. This makes it easier to comply with regulations and, just as importantly, with human expectations of fairness.
so you're embedding the ethics from the start, not just checking boxes afterward.
Yes, exactly, making them intrinsic, not just an add-on constraint.
Hmm.
It ensures transparency, builds trust.
Okay, this sounds really good for making AI reliable and trustworthy, but I'm still circling back to that potential clash. Doesn't determinism, almost by definition, limit creativity, limit the ability to adapt to truly novel situations? How does Spinoza's philosophy handle that tension?
This is where it gets really interesting and, I think, quite elegant. Spinoza's ideas suggest a way to have determinism without killing off creativity or adaptability.
How?
One approach, drawing from thinkers like Vadinsky and Prabhakaran, is to think about different levels. You could have a deterministic structure at a higher level, sort of setting the overall rules of the game, maybe in the sub-symbolic parts of the AI. But within that deterministic framework, you allow for stochastic processes with some randomness or unpredictability.
Okay, hang on. Deterministic structure, but with randomness inside? Like what?
Think of it like a riverbed. The overall path of the riverbed itself, is largely determined by the landscape. That's your deterministic higher-level architecture. It
Yeah.
guides the flow.
Right.
But the actual water flowing within that bed,
Mm.
it's full of unpredictable eddies, currents, ripples.
Mm.
That's the stochastic adaptation happening within the defined path.
Mm.
The sub-symbolic realm, where the more flexible, maybe neural net style learning happens, can have this randomness.
Okay, so you get this balance. The determinism provides the guardrails, the overall direction.
Exactly. It guides the intelligence along a defined pathway.
But the stochastic parts allow for variety, for novel solutions or behaviors to emerge within those boundaries. You get control and creativity.
Precisely. Diverse processes, behaviors, choices can emerge, but they still adhere to the overall ethical and functional framework laid out deterministically.
This really shifts how we think about intelligence itself, doesn't it? It's not just raw computation anymore.
Not at all. From this perspective, intelligence inherently involves context, adaptation, those feedback loops we talked about for constant improvement. Prabhakaran really emphasizes this recursive nature.
It makes me think of, like, teaching a kid rules for a game. The rules are the deterministic part, but how they actually play, the strategies they invent. That's emergent.
That's a perfect analogy.
Mm.
And it challenges that whole idea of pan-computationalism, the notion that if we just throw enough data and processing power at a problem, we'll get human-level intelligence.
Yeah, this suggests it's not just about more, it's about something qualitatively different.
Right. Human-like intelligence, maybe even things like wisdom or intuition,
Mm-hmm.
seems to involve these qualitative leaps, these emergent properties that arise from complex interactions, not just more number crunching.
So this philosophical framework gives us a solid foundation for aiming for AI that can genuinely understand context, maybe even behave appropriately in different social or cultural situations.
Yes, exactly. It allows for emergent behavior that wasn't explicitly programmed, arising from that dynamic interplay between the system and its environment. Vadinsky highlights this potential.
And this leads towards, what was the term? Sophimatics.
Sophimatics, yeah. It signifies moving beyond just calculation and task performance. It's a paradigm shift towards AI that embodies holistic behavior, integrating knowledge, context, and, crucially, values into its very design.
Which brings us back squarely to ethics. If we're talking about integrating values, the Spinozist approach seems to make ethics foundational, not optional.
Absolutely. It's not an add-on. It's built in from the ground floor.
And Spinoza himself had strong views on this.
He did. His view was quite radical for his time, and maybe even now. He saw ethical constraints, moral principles, as inherent properties of intelligence. Things like dignity, inclusion, respect. Al-Radhan points out that Spinoza saw these as intrinsically positive values.
So the idea isn't just to program AI not to be unethical, but to design it to be inherently ethical from the start.
That's the core concept. Build these positive values, dignity, fairness, respect, into the system's architecture from day one. If you do that, the hope is that the AI will inherently address many of the ethical and sociopolitical worries people have.
And the determinism we discussed earlier helps make that practical.
Yes, because determinism aids in integrating these ethical and cultural norms clearly. It allows for traceability, auditability, which makes it easier to ensure compliance with regulations and cultural expectations. These are huge practical benefits for AI today, as both Vadinsky and Arohan note.
So things like justice, inclusivity, equity, they're not afterthoughts. They become the foundation.
The very foundations, exactly. This approach aims to align AI much more closely with what we humans actually want: safety, reliability, effectiveness, fairness, and ultimately technology that genuinely improves our lives.
It's pretty amazing how these centuries-old ideas resonate so strongly today. And it seems Spinoza even connects with some more contemporary complex theories. You mentioned Langan's CTMU earlier.
Yeah, there are interesting parallels being drawn. Langan's cognitive-theoretic model of the universe, for instance, talks about self-duality.
Self-duality.
It's this idea that mental and physical aspects are fundamentally linked, inseparable aspects of reality, which, sounds an awful lot like Spinoza's monism, his idea of one substance with two attributes.
So it offers another way to think about integrating different aspects within AI.
Exactly. Both philosophies, in their own ways, point towards a unified framework built on holism, interconnectedness, maybe determinism balanced with complexity. Langan's concepts, like seeing reality as a system where diverse parts form a coherent whole, really complement Spinoza's vision. It provides a strong conceptual basis for AI that can handle diverse tasks, integrate knowledge, switch contexts, all things we want advanced AI to do.
It feels like Spinoza acts as this kind of intellectual glue.
That's a nice way to put it. His ideas reach across centuries, touching figures from Descartes to discussions relevant even to quantum mechanics. He provides this philosophical thread that can help connect fields like biology, economics, neuroscience, even sociology and politics.
So philosophy isn't just navel-gazing. It can actually guide technology.
That's the argument here. Spinoza's framework offers a way to guide advancements in AI and robotics, specifically for the benefit of society. It's a really foundational, unifying perspective.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. We've taken quite a journey today, exploring how Spinoza's really quite ancient wisdom, his ideas on integrated holism and determinism, gives us this solid philosophical ground for building AI. Not just more powerful AI, but AI that's context-aware, inherently ethical, and genuinely geared towards social responsibility.
Yeah, and I think this deep dive really shows that maybe the way past current AI limitations isn't just more tech, but a shift in our philosophical outlook. Moving towards AI that has qualities we value in humans: integration, reflection, maybe even a kind of wisdom.
AI designed fundamentally to make human life better.
That's a goal. It's about seeing intelligence as something richer than just computation.
So here's a final thought for you to chew on. If we really embrace this idea that intelligence isn't just calculation, but something deeply tied to context, to values, to emergence, what new possibilities does that open up? How could AI really contribute to human society then? And maybe even more profoundly, how might that shift fundamentally change our relationship, not just with technology, but with our own understanding of what intelligence truly is?